Hi, good afternoon. This is Mr. Cassidy, and today we're going to be covering Chapter 2, Lesson 3 in your McGraw Hill books. If you are following along, and you'll probably want your book out to follow along, we're going to start this lesson on about page 130. But first, let's start with a quick recap of Lesson 2. So, Lesson 2, we covered two-step equations, and based on your guys' work on the little exit ticket we did last class, you guys are doing really well with this. So let's go ahead and practice solving problems 1, 2, and 3. Go ahead and try problem 1 now. Okay, on problem 1, you should have done 3n plus 2 equals 8. And to solve, you're going to subtract the 2 on both sides. That gives us 6 equals 3n. That was our outside in number. That's our last number to remove first. Then we divide by the 3. And you should have gotten n equals 2. Okay, on problem 2, go ahead and solve for n. It was 6n minus 3 equals 21. So we start with that outside in number. That's the minus 3. And I'm going to undo it with opposite operation is addition. Add 3 to both sides, and I get 24 equals 6n. 6 times n equals 24, so I divide by 6 to solve that n is equal to 4. Okay, problem 3 has one more wrinkle in it. Please be extra careful with positives and negatives and bringing things down. Go and solve for a. Okay, you should have done this. 2 equals 3 minus a. The outside in number is this 3. We need to undo it first, but it has no sign. Remember, things without a sign are positive. So to get rid of that 3, we need to subtract 3 on both sides. That gives me a negative 1 here, equals negative a. Bring down whatever's left. So some of you may have made the mistake right here. I anticipated that. It's really tricky. When you see the minus sign, it needs to come with the letter. So now it's just a negative a. Minus a and negative a are the same thing. How do we get rid of this negative sign? Well, it's a negative 1 times a. You can always fill in a 1 there, so we could divide by a negative 1. Negative 1 divided by negative 1 is a positive 1 equals a. Okay. All right, so this one, tricky. We want to keep working on this with the positive negatives and being careful with the sign. If there's a minus sign with there, that's always a stumbling point that many students have. So keep working on it. We're getting into lesson 3 today, writing equations. So what are we going to learn? Today we're going to learn to translate a sentence into an equation. That means take a number sentence full of words. And so we've got words like plus, minus, less than, etc. And it's going to turn into a x plus 5 equals 10, something like this. We're translating it into the math equation, the algebra. Okay, another thing we're going to work on is defining a variable to write and solve the equation. Now, we've already learned how to solve the equations, but we're going to have to start with the writing step for a word problem and then solve it. Let's get into it. So translate the sentence into an equation. 8 less than 3 times a number is 23. Now, my first thing in teaching this is always, please just go in the order of the words. So if it says 8 here, write an 8. Less than is one slight trick, and I'm going to have to go over that in a second, but let's get the next part. 3 times a number. Well, in algebra, whenever they say a number, that's the number we don't know, and that's going to be our variable. Now, traditionally in algebra, to solve a word problem like this, you would write, let n be the number. This is called defining a variable. It just means naming it and choosing which letter you're going to use. So n is going to represent the number, so I'm going to put n here. And 3 times a number, well, I might show that with 3 times n or just 3n. Is always going to be our equal sign, and then negative 23 is our last part, and that's just the same number. Now, how do we do less than? Than is the tricky word. Than is always going to mean to flip the order. Okay. 8 less than, because if it was 8, if you were 8 less than your brother's age, you would take your brother's age and subtract 8, right? So less than means flip the order. Less is going to be minus, than means flip the order. So we're going to flip these two things in our answer and get 3n minus 8 equals negative 23. So key things I want you paying attention to. You write left to right. Work left to right in the sentence. Don't try to take it in all at once. Just go slowly left to right. Second, main point. Less would be minus, but than is a flipping word. Flipping words mean to switch the two things, the number before with the number after. Okay? Those are two main things I wanted to get out of this problem. So I'm going to skip. This is all the stuff your book shows you for that. Let's go ahead and look at, here's our clue words. So if you go to Google Classroom, guys, this is included as a downloadable little image. If I were you and you have access to a printer, I would print it, glue it into your book for this lesson. Just glue it over one of the problems that you don't need to look at. Glue it on page, I don't know, 129. We aren't using that page at all. Because these clue words are really helpful. And let me highlight a few things. Things like some are increased and more. Some increased and more are going to be addition. That means we're going to use the plus symbol. Subtracting, difference is really big. They keep using this in word problems. Less than, those are the kind of things. Decreased by, okay? That's going to be subtracting. Multiplying, of is a key word here, and per and each are the key words I want you to really focus on for multiplying. Okay, that means times. Dividing, they like to use the word quotient, which I hate because I always forget what it means, but that means to divide. Or words like half or a third. Don't worry about per and each. Per and each sometimes mean dividing, but usually they mean multiplying. Last, answers are always is always our equal sign. Or total, words like total are going to be our equals. And same with is, was, were. Now reverse the order, than and from. That's that than number. That means to switch the two things. If it says 8 less than a number, we would do n minus the 8. Less is our subtraction word right here, but than is our reverse the order word. So for all of these problems, what I want you to do, go back to this slide, have it in front of you, have it open in another tab while you're doing this Ed puzzle, because it's the key to this. Let's try another problem together. 3 more than half a number is 15. So 3, I go back to my slide. More is going to be plus, than means reverse the order. So more, and then this is a reverse. Half a number, let's look what that is. Half a number, oh, there it is. Half, divide by 2. Okay, so n is going to be our number. Half of it means divide it by 2. Is 15, that means equals 15. So we just went and brainstormed right above the problem. Then I'm going to go ahead and do this. 3 more than, that means switch it, half a number. So I do n divided by 2 more 3. So plus 3, that's my flipping, equals 15. Okay. Now we could write n divided by 2 a different way. We could also write it as n over 2 plus 3 equals 15. One last way we might show that. Half of a number is half times the number plus 3. So there's a few different ways you can write these problems. This would just be one. So let's take a stab at 3 problems. So 13 is more than 1/5 of a number. This is your second example in the book. 13 equals 7 more than. That means 7 plus flip. 1/5 of a number. 1/5 of times n. Now I'm going to flip it. 1/5 n plus 7 equals 13. Okay, so you can check your book for this example on page 130. We're now going to solve 3 problems at the bottom of page 130. Okay, so use your clue words and go ahead and try typing in your answer for A. Okay, for 18, for A, you should do 15 equals 3 more than, so that's a 3 plus, but a reverse, 6 times the number, 6 times n. So what you should have written is 6n plus 3 equals 15. And if you put it the other way, if you did 15 equals 6n plus 3, that's okay. And because addition can actually be switched, it would also be okay to leave the 3 plus 6n. Okay, B, go and solve and type your answer in. 10 increased by is a word for plus, the quotient, so I look for quotient, that means division of a number and 6, so quotient of n divided by 6 equals 5. Okay, so we would write that 10 plus n divided by 6 equals 5. That's our equation. Okay, C, go and try C. The difference between, so that means minus, and between means my flip. 12, oh no, between is not a flip, my apologies. Difference between means I'm going to put this minus between the next two numbers. 12 and 2/3 of a number. Remember, of means multiply. Okay, so 12 minus 2/3 n equals 18. Awesome. I hope we're doing okay with this. If you need more practice, you could flip ahead in the book and try any of the odd problems on page 133. Odd solutions are in the back of your textbook, and you may be able to find them quite easily under Chapter 2, Lesson 3. So try odd problems on page 133 if you're struggling with this. It's good extra practice. Let's move on, though. Okay, for our video, we're now going to cover how to do a word problem. So you buy 3 books that each cost, notice that word each, that's one of our key words, cost the same amount, and a magazine, all for $55.99. You know that the magazine costs $1.99. How much does each book cost? Okay, so one way to do this is to write out what we know. 3 books and a magazine. So I'm going to put plus a magazine cost. So that means like sort of the total equals $55.99. Sort of like a brainstorming step. What does this mean? Now, you know that the magazine costs $1.99, so this is going to get switched with $1.99 equals $55.99. And here we have 3 books. How much does each book cost? Each again means multiply. So if I have 3 books and they each are $5, I would do 3 times 5. So I'm going to do 3 times B. So let's define a variable. Let B equal the price of a book. That's how I define the variable. Now I'm going to use this letter B in my problem. 3 times B plus $1.99 equals $55.99. I've now set up an equation that we have already learned how to solve. So I'm going to solve this exactly the way I taught you guys. And this is the equation. This is the goal of a word problem, is being able to take this information and turn it into a letter and a sentence, an equation using a variable. And you naturally do this kind of algebra in your head all the time. Shopping, cooking, the things that you use math for, you do this. It's just now we're learning how to actually write it mathematically and then solve it. And the more we train our brains to translate things into math, it actually just makes it easier. We can solve these problems quicker. So let's go ahead and start. Let's take away the outside in number, subtract 199. And we're going to get $54 equals 3 times the cost of a book, because we bought 3 books for the $54 that are left. So I would divide it by 3. The books have to equal, let's see here, that's going to be about $18 each. And guys, if you don't know this off the top of your head times tables, that's okay. I would be using a calculator on this. I would pull up my little calculator app just like this and do 54 divided by 3. Okay, thanks guys. Let's go and practice one. So I'm going to skip ahead. If you want a second example of this, very similar, there's example 4 with the personal trainer. Let me get to that. Personal trainer buys a weight bench for $500. So we've got the bench and plus W weights. W, they're telling us what letter to use in this problem. W is it. Weights for $24.99 each. Remember, what does each mean? Multiply. W times $24.99. The total cost, that means total, we're getting to our equals $849.86. 849.86. How many weights were purchased? Well, the bench was $500, so that's going to go right here. And so I would set up this equation, 500 plus W, let W be the cost of the weights, or the number of weights. W equals the number of weights. So I would do W times $24.99 equals $849.86. And then I'm going to start using my opposite steps to solve. This is a positive 500, so I subtract 500. That's going to give me $349.86 equals, and I like to see the number in front when it's being multiplied by a letter, 24.99W. Last step, 24.99 is being multiplied by the number of weights, so we're going to divide by 24.99. Divide by 24.99 and turn to your handy calculator. Let's solve for the number of weights using that. Calculator, we get 349.86 divided by 24.99 equals 14. Number of weights is 14 weights. Usually in a word problem, we're trying to add the word in our answer. Since W stood for the number of weights, I'm going to write 14 weights in my answer. I want to actually be specific. I'm not just trying to look for the number here, 14. I was trying to solve how many weights, so it's 14 weights is my proper answer. All right, so why don't you guys try that with problem D at the bottom of your page 131. And let me skip this. There we are, D. Go ahead and solve for the number of hours, how many hours it takes for the temperature to be 84 degrees. Okay, current temperature is 54 degrees, and we want it, how many hours will it equal 84 degrees? So what I'm seeing is 54 degrees is sort of the current plus 2.5 degrees each hour. Each means multiply. And how many hours is going to be my variable? So let hours be my variable, equals H. And it's 2.5 degrees per hour, so times H. And then when it gets there, it'll equal 84 degrees. So I'm going to fill that in. Current temperature is 54 plus 2.5 H equals 84. If you didn't solve it correctly the first time, now that you have the equation, go ahead and take a second stab at it. Solve for H. And you should start by subtracting 54 on both sides. 2.5H is equal to 30, and we divide by 2.5. 30 divided by 2.5. I'm going to turn to my calculator for the sake of the video. 30 divided by 2.5 is 12. So the number of hours is 12. 12 hours is our answer. Okay. All right. Now they have one final example problem. This is tricky, and I want to cover it briefly, but we've covered the main ideas so far. Your and your friend's lunch cost $19. That's like a total. Your lunch cost $3 more than your friend's. How much was your friend's lunch? So yours is $3 more than the friend's lunch. So let's call the friend's lunch F. And so your lunch would be $3 plus F, and their lunch is just F. So if we were to write this as an equation, then we know both of them together equaled $19. Now, this is the kind of problem I would probably just try to figure out mentally, not necessarily writing into the equation, but this is how we'd write the equation. 3 plus F, that's your lunch, because $3 more than the friend's, plus the friend's lunch equaled $19. And so the first thing I'm going to do is take away that extra $3, subtract that 3 from both sides, and that's going to give me that the friend's lunch plus another of the friend's lunch, the equal amounts, would equal $16. So I know that the friend's lunch must have been 8, because 8 plus 8 is 16. So $8 was the friend's lunch, and yours was $3 more. Yours was $11. Okay, this is tricky. I'm going to involve this in maybe a deeper lesson later on when we have to define a variable based on the other information, 3 plus F plus F. Okay, guys, final question for your understanding today is this. Exit ticket. Write an equation for the following situation. Go ahead and type in your equation in the message. Okay, all you're doing is writing an equation here. He charges $35 for a house call and $30 per hour. So notice the word per here usually means multiply. And guys, house call means that's like the charge they get for showing up. That's like the one-time fee, or that's like a charge for DoorDash no matter what. The $35 just gets charged once. And then the other amount is per hour. So if you didn't get it, go ahead and reset it up one more time. Try it again. And what you should have typed in is 35 is the one-time amount plus $30 per hour. Let's call H hours. 30H is how much they're going to charge, and their total amount was $125. Okay. If you had switched these two, you'll still get it marked right. Okay, guys, I thank your minds and your hearts, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.